Over the course of the next few lessons, we're going to take a look at navigation tags. Now, we say navigation tags, but there's really primarily just one that we really need to worry about, and that is WP Nav Menu. And this will display a menu on the page or let WordPress know where a specific menu should go. Now, there is also listed under navigation tags in the codex or in the documentation, walk nav menu tree. And this is not actually a function that you will need to use. It's actually used internally within WordPress. It's just listed there in the documentation. So again, by digging through source code, you can kind of figure that out. And I'm just going to tell you there that now. Now, the name walk also has some significance that we'll look at a little bit later. But for now, we really just want to focus on WP Nav Menu, as well as one other function, which is register nav menus, which needs to go in our functions.php. And this will tell WordPress that we do in fact have custom menus set up in our theme. So there's two steps here. We need to work with WP Nav Menu and we need to work with register nav menus. Let's start off with looking at WP Nav Menu first. So WP Nav Menu takes a number of arguments. So this is the format that you'll generally see it in. You'll see arguments set up before it, and then WP Nav Menu called with arguments passed in. And actually, this style of setting up arguments and passing them into a template tag is something very common. We've seen it before, and we will see it again. Now, we only see two of the possible arguments here, theme location and container, being used, but there are actually quite a lot of them. So what we should really do at this point is dig deep into all of the possible arguments that you're likely to use and what the default ones are if you don't set anything. So if we were to come over to the documentation, we could see that there are a number of different arguments here, but I find that the easiest way to look at them all and understand them all is in the code. So let's look at some commented code to start off here to get us a better understanding of what's really going on with the different parameters that we could use. Okay, so inside my header.php, I'm going to come down to my navigation, and inside of here, I could see all of the arguments being set up for WP Nav menus. And these are commented in so that you can easily swap them out and begin to understand everything and what it looks like on the front end if you change these things. So let's just go through a few of them. Theme location is very important, and this tells you the location pickable in the customizer. It's also what we need to reference in the functions.php when we set up our menu in the next step. We could also assign a default menu. So if we know, for example, we have a menu called main menu or footer menu or something like that, we could say, hey, if you haven't in the admin area assigned a menu, make sure that we use this menu for it. We also have a wrapper around the entire navigation. Now, most of the navigation is going to be an unordered list with list items inside of it. So you could take that entire unordered list and you could wrap it in a container. And you could set that to be a div, you could set it to be a nav, and that container, that div or that nav, whatever you do, it can take custom classes and ID. So if you need something for styling or for JavaScript purposes, you could set that up here. Now, going down further, inside of, where you would normally see an unordered list, you could customize how that appears. So items wrap is going to replace the unordered list with anything else you want. And we can see that it's a little bit confusing, this style of coding. So if you haven't seen this before, this is a way in PHP of passing in parameters into strings of text. So what this is saying is take the first parameter, which is going to be a string, and place it here. Then take the second parameter, which is also a string, S stands for string, and place it here. And then the third parameter, which is also a string, go ahead and place it here. So the different parameters being passed are the ID, the class, or the classes, and then whatever should go inside of there. Now, that's where menu class and menu ID come in. This is what's going to be passed into here. So if you want to modify this, like let's say for some reason this has to be a div instead of an unordered list, or let's say that it has to be an ordered list, I would suggest keeping most of this the same and just customizing the things that you need. So now we're getting down into the link item itself, and we could add text. So this is going to be a list item. So an li before the link actually appears. So if we put something here, it'll appear in the menu like an icon or something like that before the actual text before the actual link appears. And then if we want something to go inside of the actual link, we would use before and after. So the best way to understand this is just start playing with it. And I'm going to do a quick demo here. I'm going to put before and after like this and just demo real quick what this is going to do. So notice now on my site in my main navigation, I have these carets appearing before the link. So this is not actually clickable. And then this, the curly braces are appearing in the link. So these are clickable. So that just shows you that link before, I didn't have that correct. Add text before link text outside a tag. Okay, so let's change the order of these real quick. Now it'll be correct in the downloads. Okay, so now that is correct. So if you want text to appear before the link and not be clickable, or inside the link and be clickable, that's what you would have there. Now, by default, they're going to be none, and you might not use that. That's just what it is. And then depth is going to be the number of child elements shown. So if you only want it going to 1 depth, 3 depths, or you could remove it if you don't want to control depth at all. Now, the final parameter that I'll go over here is fallback CB. And what that is a function that's called if no menu is available. So if someone does not assign this menu, or we don't hard code it up here, then you could just, by default, it's going to have WP page menu, which will just display an entire list of all the pages on the site. So you may or may not want this if you're building a theme that is to be used for a lot of people. You may not want that popping up by default. And if you don't want that default behavior, you could just set it to false as a Boolean. So include that there just to let you know. If you don't do anything, it will automatically display a list of pages, and then you could set it false to, of course, override that and have nothing appear if nothing is set. So these are all the different parameters. You'll go around and play around with all of them, play around with this code, customize it, see what it does on the front end. But now we need to look briefly at our functions.php. So coming into our functions.php, if I come down a ways, we'll see register menu locations, and register nav menus sets up and works pretty simply. You basically have the code name for the menu, or how you're going to refer to it internally or in your theme itself, and then you have the name that will appear to the admin, or how it's referenced, and I'm doing this here so that it can be translated into other languages. Now, if we wanted to have multiple menus on our site, we would just do something like footer menu and footer menu here. Now, somewhere in our theme, we could simply come in, this is our header one, instead of saying theme location main menu, we could just move this into our footer and then change this to footer menu. So that's how you would go about creating multiple menu areas on your site. I'm going to remove that for now, but just duplicate this code to easily be able to do that. And in our practice later on, I will have you do that. So it might be something good to play around with first. But at this point, we've taken a look at basically how to customize the different parameters and how to set up our functions.php to include a menu. So at this point, we're going to do a practice after the next couple, but I would suggest at least playing around with these different parameters to see what you get and see what they do, and make sure that everything makes sense. Ask any questions if you don't understand. And then in the next video, we're going to look a little bit more at some things that relate to working with menus in WordPress.